Hey, guys, people, it's your boy. Well, Fetus United, back again with another podcast episode of Questions and Quandaries. So today I got another superb episode for you guys. I'll be discussing more governmental, political, economic, social, all the things, philosophical, historical topics for you guys. We'll be centering more around American, America-centric topics today. So, yeah. Let's, we'll get a dive. We'll dive right into this. All right, guys, diving. Because like we're diving. It's like delving, but diving. So, first thing I'd like to discuss was something that came up in conversation with this person I was discussing things with, politics, talking about Trump. I was defending the cool Trumpo, even though I don't agree with him. He's not a good guy, I guess. Not a very conventional guy, doing things very unorthodox, or a president. Uh, Obviously a product of a different time because of the context by which he was elected. But anyway, I digress. First question we discussed was if the president issues an illegal executive order, is it still illegal? So, like, if he, like the quote unquote Muslim ban, I'm not saying that's a Muslim ban. I'm not saying it's not a Muslim ban. That's just the common term used to refer to the time, you know, a few times ago, where the president did some things, or put some people, made a list of some countries, and people couldn't go to and from those countries. So yeah. So if the president issues an illegal executive order, is it still illegal? So thinking about this question, the nature of this question, this quandary, it's the nature of this show, Questions and Quandaries, where we talk about questions and quandaries, and we discuss the questions and the nature of the quandary. We need to understand what the job of the president is. We could refer back to what the president should do, right? Let me find it. What's that thing the president does? He's like the president. He's the head of the executive branch, and most of what he does can be encapsulated in the oath that he takes, the oath of the affirmation that he takes when he takes the office. He says, "I do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute the office of the President of the United States and will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States." Now, this statement taken by the president, this affirmation that he takes, this oath that he takes to the people, is to protect and execute the supreme law of the land, the Constitution, right? So, like, that technically means he could, like, not do other things. But would that be legal? Because just because it happens doesn't make the thing legal. Because that's not necessarily the nature of legality, in my opinion, right? So that's when we come to the idea of, like, the separation of powers, the nature of how other legal systems and institutions that we have in place are meant to, like, impress on and corral and control each other. The judicial branch, the Congress, which, in my opinion, the Congress is trash. Uh, because inherently, the Congress is, in a way, a danger to the society that we live in. It's a danger to human beings, right? In my opinion, if you read Article 1 in the Constitution, it does have one good thing. Article 1, where it establishes Congress, where it has the enumerated powers thing, the herein granted that are the powers of the Congress, and it lists that. But I think they should have no powers. I think we should use Congress to help weaken Congress. It's like, and eventually just do away with it. We should only have like state congresses, state legislatures. It's like that thing. What's that? How do we call it? It's like using Congress to destroy Congress. It's like if you guys have seen Endgame, the beginning of Endgame, it's where like Thanos uses the Infinity Stones to destroy the Infinity Stones, right? I think that's how it should be. Congress should use Congress to destroy Congress. Use its own powers to do away with itself, but I know that'll never happen because people are greedy. The Congress wants to keep power, all the senators and House of Representatives, the how it be, I guess. So, next topic I'll be talking about. Wait, no, I'm still talking about the first topic. My bad. So, like, if the president issues an legal executive order, is it still legal? Well, even if it were legal, it could still be condemned as illegal, right? Like, the judicial branch, judicial review and whatnot, they go back and try to, do away with it. They can try to review it. They can say if it's unconstitutional, but if necessarily, even if it were deemed constitutional, it could still be, illegal, right? That's why I personally believe that we need nullification again. Nullification is like when the states do what's right. They fight the federal government on laws and orders that they don't believe in. They don't think the government has the jurisdiction to enact, has the power to enact, and overrule their orders, such as we go back in time a bit, the Kentucky thing and the Virginia thing, where there was a time during the John Adams presidency where he helped pass a law and enforce a law known as the Alien and Sedition Acts, right? It like made everything. It restricted freedom of speech. That's kind of bad, And the Kentucky and Virginia resolutions, I think, were drafted. I'm not sure by who. I think it was Tommy Jefferson, and Jimmy Madison, I believe. I'm not sure. But essentially, they made the argument that their states had the power to overrule, nullify the laws and unconstitutional orders of the executive branch of the federal government. I argue that, yeah, it's kind of chill. It's kind of good. Like, we need the states in order to keep the federal government, the most potent danger to our society, in check. Because as we can see, the government, even though this law was deemed legal, right? It was passed by all branches, right? It was nullified by the states. It was failed to be enforced by the states because those few states deemed it illegal, while other states didn't deem it illegal. They thought it was not infringing on the constitutional God-given rights to people. It's not God-given, my bad. I don't believe in God. Actually, I do believe in God. Actually, I'm not sure what I believe in, but the Constitution doesn't necessarily mean God. They say creator could mean any being, supreme being, or supreme forces, right? So yeah, even if it is an illegal executive order is issued, legal law is issued, it could still it could still be illegal by the nature of it being illegal. Just because it's passing does not make it necessarily legal, right? So yeah, so it's depends on the case, I guess, case by case basis on how the laws work and what they do. So yeah, if the president does issue an illegal executive order, is it still legal? Possibly, depending on a case by case basis and the response of the government, the state governments, and whatnot. And another thing, we got to abolish Article 1 hit. We got to abolish Congress. Hopefully, you guys should remember that Thanos and use the Infinity Stones to destroy the Infinity Stones. So, what I'm talking about. So yeah, Congress is too much power, right? Oh, actually, I actually like to refer back to Congress. And one good thing that they have about the Article 1 was the here and granted thing, where it's like all the powers, and here and granted has, power to borrow money, power to regulate commerce, power to establish. I don't agree that they have the power to regulate commerce or borrow money, but anyways, let's see. Here it is. One problem that I didn't like with Article 2, where in the Constitution, where they established the executive branch, is that they don't use that here and granted clause, right? They use that thing where they talk really broadly about the powers, right? Don't like that. I don't like that, man. It's pretty bad, Yeah, it's pretty bad the way the federal government has the power in the Constitution, because especially the executive branch, it's just has the executive power vested in the chair in the office or whatever. That's super general, and it's not good at all, because at the time the executive power, and still is power associated with the king, right? And that's not good. Too powerful. Yeah. No more. You gotta weaken the government. It's too powerful. Yeah. So, next question: would Lightning McQueen of Cars fame, Cars 1, 2, 3. Actually, I'm not sure. I've only seen Cars 1. With the Cars franchise fame, buy life insurance or car insurance? This is our philosophical question that we have today. The question that it's really about the nature of this question. As we go back, the nature of questions and quandaries is to discuss the nature of questions. It's a discussion about what life is. Does Lightning McQueen buy car insurance or life insurance, right? Well, I think we could go back to car lore, plane lore, as we can see that the two universes are obviously intertwined, that cars and planes obviously intersect. You guys might remember in Planes, there's a montage, a collection of clips in there where they go through the history, sort of. They show that the planes were engaged in World War I, World War II. You see the Red Baron. It's interesting. It's nice that they acknowledge such a great man, such a hero to the German and military, history. And all of his achievements, we see him doing things. And it's great that they show all these things in Planes. It confirms that the universe they live in is thus the same universe that we live in, right? The cars are in the same universe we do. So does that mean that where we are controlling them? Well, not necessarily. We obviously see in the Cars and Planes universe the cars and planes are sentient. They have their own will, free will. They choose to drive. They choose to move. Choose to cruise down the road. Choose to glide in the air. They choose to bomb others. They choose to have dogfights with one another in the air. Of course, I'm referring to planes there, not the dogs or the cars. I'm referring to planes, dogfights. So yeah, that it's obvious they're sentient. Those cars and the planes and cars, right? So that means that very much I would the assumption made, the implication that is made by the lore of cars, the in-depth construction that the writers made obviously imply that the cars are essentially the humans of their universe. It's under the suspension of disbelief that it's just how it works. The cars operate everything, the planes operate everything. In a way, the humans, are not there. So, yeah, so I get so under that logic, right? That the cars are the humans of their universe. Thus, that would mean that technically he would need life insurance, right? Because he because if he is alive by the context of his universe, wouldn't that mean that he would need life insurance, not car insurance? And I thought that was interesting to this nature on what life is, because even though he's not alive by our context, no gears, no amount of oil, no diesel engine, no car hood is alive by our standards, right? It's not alive because it's, machinery. But in the context of their universe, it would very much be alive, because it's obvious that the implication of the universe is that the cars are sentient and thus are replacing humans as the primary mover, the primary force on the universe. Cars and planes, I mean, right? And it's obvious that their universe somehow paralleled our universe. There's a World War II, Vietnam War, and whatnot. So it's very interesting. So yeah, I would say in the cars context of the universe, the nature of life itself, Lightning McQueen would buy life insurance, not car insurance. So yeah, that's a good question, I guess, to talk about. Okay, so for our third question, is the Constitution constitutional? Well, maybe. Is it or is it not? Well, we could attack this two ways. We can talk about whether the Constitution, like the actual laws that it has, are constitutional, like within itself. Does it contradict itself? Or we can talk about whether it even has the authority to be considered the supreme law of the land, like some people argue, right? Because whether the Constitution has any actual authority, right? So yeah, is the Constitution constitutional? So I want to refer here to the guys know the 3/5 and slave importation clauses in the Constitution. Didn't allow I don't didn't end slave importations. I believe in 1808 is a clause, and then it does a 3/5 thing for non-free peoples. Which obviously is referring to slaves. So yeah, and we obviously overruled those with like all the Lincoln stuff. It's like the 14th and the whatnot amendments, right? It's 13th, I think it's 13, 14, 15, I think, is the Reconstruction amendments. I'm not sure. I have a low IQ, sorry. My bad. But obviously, those constitutional parts were illegal. They were infringements on other individuals' rights, right? So those are technically unconstitutional. But theoretic, so theoretically, the Constitution was unconstitutional for a large portion of its life, nearly a century, right? Yeah, like 80 years or something, right? So yeah, but what about like other parts of the Constitution? Could we deem those unconstitutional, right? Maybe. I don't know. Could we? I'd argue that yeah, most of the Constitution, in my opinion, is unconstitutional, and this is coming from a left libertarian, a left wing libertarian, right? My bad. I'm inserting my opinion here. It's I'd argue that most of the Constitution is unconstitutional. I'd actually prefer a revisit. I personally, if you guys look at the Articles of Confederation is, in my opinion, much better, but it's also, in my opinion, it also needs a revision. It's also quite powerful, the government that it creates. Although I don't think the executive and the judicial branch have enough power in that. So, yeah, but yeah, I'd argue that, as I've said before, the Congress is unconstitutional, right? They are providing, they're using power that I think that it simply shouldn't have. The state legislatures should retain that power, not the federal government, right? And like, you know, personally, I think what's good is something like what the Swiss have. There's like no federal taxes. We need no federal taxes. All the cantons or whatever have their own taxes, have their own laws, have their own differences. Some have wealth tax, and I guess those are pretty leftist, but the others don't, you know? Others aren't stealing from the hard-worked coffers of the people. They're allowing the people to have retain all their hard work, you know? So, yeah. Oh, yeah, my bad. I think I kind of left the question. My bad. I was talking about, is a constitution constitutional? So, yeah, we're talking about the 3/5 and slave importation stuff, you know? And talked about why I don't think Congress has power, because the states and whatnot, right? So let's talk about another argument made against whether the Constitution is constitutional, and it's the Constitutional Convention, the setting where the Constitution was fabricated, was made, was manufactured and written, drafted by the founding father people. Well, maybe. Is it? I don't know. Well, the argument here is that the Constitutional Convention was supposed to revise the Articles of Confederation, not establish a completely new national government, right? But did. So based on that, doesn't that mean that the power vested in the Constitutional Convention was not ever allowed to reach the area where it did, where it ends up revising the Constitution? It's an argument, I guess. Well, see, the problem I think with this one is that the Constitution very much is constitutional, because like the Constitution has the power, the authority, because of the fact that power is derived from the consent of the governed, right? So by achieving consent, and by the way, consent is good, guys. Consent is it's like tea. You don't give someone tea. You don't, if they don't allow you to give them tea, right? Consent is good. So anyways, consent to be governed, right? The states gave their consent to the Constitution, even though I personally don't agree with it. The Constitution does have authority because of it was consented to by the states, thus giving it the power to to exist to be the supreme law of the land, overriding any authority that the previous government gave to the Constitutional Convention to merely revise Articles of Confederation. So yeah, Constitution is pretty. I would argue is constitutional, it's legal, right? But even though I don't agree with it, many of its clauses, articles, the legislative branch, aren't chill. Got to be abolished. But so yeah. And now we move on to our last question. Do we live in a society? Now, maybe. Do we? Now, the nature of this question here, the essence of this question is about life and what a society is, and whether what we live in can be considered to be a society, right? So we could discuss this by looking at what a society is. According to Google, if you type in a society definition, society, noun, the aggregate of people living together in a more or less ordered community. So I'd argue that society is more than that. A society has to also have a more or less ordered community with culture, with a unifying group, a unifying part, or customs or traditions that tie them together. They don't have to necessarily be physical characteristics that tie them together. I'd argue that it has to be arbitrary, more like arbitrary things like culture and whatnot, right? It's socially constructed things that create the social stratosphere that is known as a society. So do we live in a society? Living in a society. Do we live in a society? Do we live in a society? Well, I would argue that we, more or less, we do live in a society, because I don't think it's a society in the way that people think. I think we live in several societies. My society may not be the same as another person's society, right? Because this unifying groups are not federal, they're not national, they're not like that. My society, I would consider myself, the society that I live in is a local society, whereas the society of the national government and the international government is not a society that I live in, because I'm not unified with every single other society. Although there are other societies that I consider myself to be partaken in. So yeah, I do think we live in a society, but is every society a society that we live in? No. Although we do live in a society that is unified in an orderly way that unifies us, like culture, community, civilization, culture and tradition, customs that unifies. And so yeah, we do live in a society. So that's the end of today's podcast of questions and quandaries, guys. Make sure to check out the other 2 episodes. And so yeah, you guys have a great day, have a great weekend, or whatever. Great lunch, great dinner, and whale feed us out.